Welcome to Season 3 of This Is How My Brain Works, the podcast about living, thriving, and laughing through the ups and downs of neurodiversity. We explore the real stories, the real struggles, and the real strengths that come with thinking differently.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I am Krista, and I am here with Sarah. It is ladies' night on the show. Michael and Jason are off on assignment.
We could tell you where they are, but then we'd have to kill you.
That's right.
Just kidding.
And by the time
that's our Gen X reference.
And by the time you found out, they wouldn't be there anymore, so it would be useless.
True. Plus, we don't believe in killing, so there's that too.
There's that too. So we were talking, and we like to when the lads are gone, we like to maybe look at some of the more esoteric things that this two of us talk about when we're not with the lads. And so we thought today that we would talk about dreams and how dreams can feel louder or more sort of alive and meaningful for neurodivergent folks, and how, our brains don't really turn off. And so it's sort of an extension. There's this great, I wish I could remember this study, but it was actually the study showing that actually our brains do more of a lift while we're asleep than it does when we're awake. So it is such meaningful time when we're asleep. And we were talking about just really active dreams, and I am in a cycle of having incredibly active dreams. So we just thought we'd talk about dreaming and what it means, and if you dream journal, and and I have dreams all the time that I can sort of remember imprints of them. I know I was dreaming, but I don't remember them. And then I'll have these dreams that are like crystal clear that stick with me for days and days and days.
And really, dear listener or person at home, the reason that I agreed to this topic is because she says she's had 2 juicy dreams this week. And I want to hear them. And I thought, since, again, back to Krista's point, we're dabbling in the esoteric while the boys are away. And hearing about Krista's dreams might not be something. I mean, I think that they would, but then I don't know that they have dreams, so I don't know. We'll have to ask them, and maybe we'll do a circle back with the boys. But for now, I'm really excited about these dreams. So,
well, so I had a dream earlier in the week about, actually it was now about a week and a half or so ago, and it was in 2 parts. And the first half of it.
How do you mean 2 parts? 2 nights?
Well, I no 2 parts. Like, I will get up sometimes and go to the bathroom and come back and re-enter my dreams.
Okay.
So
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. So this was 2 parts, but same dream. And I was in a space that was sort of what I would call a liminal space. So it was all white. There's nothing around, and I couldn't really. There was nobody in front of me. It was like sort of a disembodied voice teaching me and then showing me visions of things. So teaching me about story. And what was interesting is they were sort of going what I would call backwards. So the first thing I saw was about like a full-fledged film, and then all the way back to sort of the illustrations that one would see if you're looking back on, like, say, Disney animators in the beginning.
Storyboards?
Yeah, and just those
even pre-storyboard.
Yeah, like sketches, like really like sketches of a character. And this idea that, so it was starting with something full-fledged, and it went to like a sketch of a character. And then that was it. And it was sort of talking about the importance of story. I can't really tell you exact words, but that's what I knew I was learning in that moment. Then I come back into the dream, and now I am in a military tent. And in that military tent, everything is,
that took a turn, didn't it? Not what we expected.
It's in a military, and now the person teaching me about story is a man in fatigues. And his fatigues are what I would describe as like older fatigues, like what we saw in Vietnam, or,
less Minecraft, more
Well, less desert, not like we have all of the fatigues you see in our current military is a lot of the desert terrain because of everything in the Middle East. But this was more like Vietnam in the sense of those deep green and blue fatigues, right? And this general had, and he had on like one of those wide brimmed hats that was low over his face. And he had two medals around his neck. One was a circle medallion and the other one was a cross. And they sort of hung side by side so you could really see them. And he had his hands on the table that was in it was like this war tent. It was like a plan, like where you go to plan strategy. And he had his hands on the table, and in front of him were all of those same pictures that I saw in the first stream. So it was the movie, all the way down to the animated. And he looked up and he said, "Two stories must become one. Now get out there." And I woke up. And there was a song I woke up to because I always, in dreams like that, I will often wake up to songs. And I'd have to look back because I did journal it. I don't remember which song right now that I woke up to.
What did he say again?
Two stories must become one. So we have since had several things happen in this country where there are two narratives of what is happening. Like we see videos of things that are happening and we see it for ourselves, and then we have an administration that is telling us that something else is happening. So I find it to be this really interesting dream, this two story, and there's so much symbolism in the things around his neck and all of this other stuff, and how it became embodied. Like there's and it is so clear for me. I can hear his voice in my head. Thoughts?
I want to hear the second dream.
Okay.
Because the premise of this actually implies that we need the second dream because maybe not.
I mean, I think the second dream is
they could be separate.
Yeah, it's separate, but I think obviously I'm processing what's happening in the world, right? So the second dream was I have a lot of dreams about communal lunch tables. Or communal eating areas.
I don't know why. Cafeterias, folks.
I don't know why, but they're always like more like grounded, like wood and like Viking community like halls type things.
So not plastic.
Not plastic, very grounded, and sort of I think the way we used to in community eat together when we were in villages and other things. So in this dream, actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to just look at it really quick because it's my yellow hat dream. In this dream, it started with different places.
Wait, time out. She said yellow hat. Did anybody else see Curious George and the man in the yellow hat? Because that's what I saw when you said that about your yellow hat dream. Anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, these were hard hats. So they were, lots of people were gathering. They were wearing yellow hats. They were sort of like construction. I'm reading from my dream journal. They were sort of like construction style hats, like hard hats, yellow hard hats, but they weren't exactly construction hats, just sort of like them. They were, however,
wait, time out. I'm lost how this is related to the communal wood hall. So you're sitting in a wood hall and everybody's got the hats on?
Hold on. We're not there yet. Hold on. Okay. We're not there yet.
Sorry.
And I said, so I had that as the first part of the dream, just people, like I was sort of out in the world and I would just see people with yellow hats doing their own thing with other people, but they would each have a yellow hat on. Then I woke up and I heard it was a song by Black Sabbath, and it's like a war cry song, and I think it's called War Pigs actually. And I heard that.
Yes, I know the song.
Yeah, and so then I went back into it after I went to sleep. This was a very rough night because I had to wake up twice, and and then it was a group of people in yellow hats standing in a square, so in a uniform square. Like all in a square, but everything around them was like liminal. There was nothing else. And I woke up after that and there was another song. I'd have to go back and look and figure out the other song. And then I went back in, and now all the people with yellow hats were at communal tables eating. And when they were eating, they were talking in code. So people would say things like, oh, how did you make this? But somehow we all knew that when you name certain ingredients, it was code for actions we needed to take outside of that room. And it was our way of speaking that way. But we were in yellow, all of us. All of the ones who were sort of in the know were all in yellow hats. And on that one, when I woke up, the song I heard was from that movie, from Harriet Tubman movie, the one, I'm going to stand up, take my people with me. We're going to find, I'm going to a brand new home far across the river, da 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 da. That was that song.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't remember the middle song right now, but it was a middle song that was sort of like
similar.
You grew, like we went from a war cry to a gathering song to a now we're going to take a trip.
A march, yeah.
Yeah. And we all recognize each other, and we're now going to go somewhere together. So those were the two dreams I had this last week that were so like interesting to me.
So obviously we have these two ICE-involved shootings, which is hard to be so neutral in the terminology, but I'm going to be that neutral. And or more optimistically, more hopefully, more spiritually in line with what I would want to see is that those two stories, and it could be a million trillion things, y'all, but that those two stories that you're talking about from that first stream coming together for this battle cry are in fact, well, if we go back and make it less about what I want and more about what the dream says, you've got, I really want to say what I want it to be, but I'll say what the dream actually says, which is you've got the two medallions. One is, you said, a coin, and one is a military.
Like it wasn't really a coin. It was just a round neutral circle and then a cross, which I think it absolutely is symbolism of sort of
church and state.
Yeah, or Christian, I sort of read it, sort of this sense of Christian nationalism versus not. Because circles, obviously, I mean, there's plenty of churches that use a cross in front of a circle. So circle is a neutral thing, but I just read it as that there's two different ways of viewing the world, and then there's obviously many more. This is very simplistic.
No, okay.
But what I really left with is that there's two stories, and there's a battle right now in the narrative of this country on and the story that you pick to follow, whether it's what the administration is selling or what you're seeing in the videos with your own eyes, are like they must come to one, meaning not that they need to agree, but one needs to, like, what's going to happen in the future is we are going to either rise up and say we all saw it with our own eyes and that's going to lead us on a path, or we're going to all comply and that's going to lead us on a path. So that's how I read that.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was
right.
And that I was being given an instruction of get out there and talk about. So, I don't know if you guys heard that, but my cats just got into a fight.
Yeah, I did hear that.
It's crazy.
That was funny.
That means the neighbor cat's visiting my back deck. And so that's how I read it. And then the second dream, when you talk about the yellow hats and learning to recognize each other, one of the things that has been tough for me is that we are really in this space where, we can be at the grocery store, we don't know who's who, right? Like who agrees with us, who doesn't, who would stand up, who wouldn't, who you could be honest. Yeah,
who would comply at the expense of someone in their community's safety.
Yeah, and you don't.
I was on a call earlier today, actually, with a friend. Yeah, it's hard out there, y'all.
And so the yellow hats, to me, that whole dream was finding, sort of learning a way to recognize one another and then coming together and functioning together as one. And that's that song, I'm going to stand up, take my people with me to a place that we'll call home, far across the river. That was the song, right? So yeah, obviously my brain is working through some things.
I think we all need to be doing it together too, which is maybe part of the message of your dream for sure. Is how do we identify ourselves among each other? The other optimistic part of me saying the two shall become one is this idea that we can reconcile our racist underbelly with our immigrant pride. And God, so I'm on wax happily about my growing up in San Francisco, which when I would go home in the summer to Louisiana was often made fun of, often jokingly, but sometimes it stung as a kid. You don't know how to take things. So I don't really know what the intent was behind a lot of those jokes or that, like, you know, San Francisco is weird attitude. But from my perspective as a kid, San Francisco was empowering and community oriented and fantastic. And I think I probably said this before, like my parents had to be like, hey, you can't just use your really inexpensive and accessible monthly bus pass to go anywhere in third grade after dark. You have to be home by dark. But like the beauty of being 9 and being able to go anywhere in the city. We had Ghirardelli chocolate, y'all. I could go and get that.
That's crazy because we would never allow our kids to do that now.
Do you know what I did at 9? My favorite kind of a day, and I probably have already shared this with all y'all, so listen again, I'll make it quick, would be to take the El Taravel streetcar from 26th Avenue all the way up Taravel into West Portal and get off at West Portal where it's a little shopping district kind of on top of the hill. So on a clear day, you theoretically could see the ocean. I grew up in a San Francisco that was always foggy. I think these days people, so y'all in West Portal, report back on whether you easily can see the ocean every day from the business district.
I don't think the fog is the same as it used to be. Even the last few times I've been there on business, I'm like, where's the fog?
I know. What, Carl, the fog. I'm sorry, we miss you. Come back. We'll be good. We'll ride our bicycles. I'll take the streetcar. So I would take the streetcar to West Portal and I would get off, and they had a fancy pet store where they sold Shar-Pei puppies. And I would pet the Shar-Pei puppies and just imagine having the $3,000 in 1984 to buy a Shar-Pei puppy. I did not have that money. I started to save my allowance and then laughed at myself. And then a few stores down, there was a toy store, and they had the large plastic horses with the hair. And then I would go through those and play with those. And then if I was really feeling myself, I'd go and I'm sorry, I apologize now to all the adults that I lied to and panhandled saying I needed a quarter for the bus. If I could get 4 quarters, I could get a bagel. For 5 quarters, I could get a bagel with cream cheese at the cafe in between the two, the basically toy store and the pet store. And I would get a bagel and therefore be able to be there from like 10 a.m. more to 4. Otherwise, I would just go home for lunch because I was hungry. Anyway, and then I'd go back and pet the dogs some more. This is what I did for free mostly. I mean, again, I'm sorry, all the adults that I got you to give me a quarter for a bagel so I could hang out longer outside my house, but.
So what many people don't know, or I don't know if we've ever connected it, is that I actually did a little bit of time at that same age, but I was in Newtown, Connecticut, and as in Newtown. And I would, back, Newtown's a small town. And so but it was the same type of thing. So it was a small town, but I would take, like, we had this like water like bladder thing that you'd put over like for hikers, and you put it on your shoulder, and I'd go and I'd have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the fields with
Just
the
so you guys
cows.
who are only listening, she's miming this.
Yes.
It's great. The water
And
bladder is over her shoulder right
it
now.
is over
Go
my
on.
shoulder. And I'd go have my PB&J with the cow sitting on a rock with a little stream with the cows, and then I'd walk down into the little town where we didn't even have a movie theater. Like they turned the courthouse into a theater. Like they pulled down a screen, and it was and the old ladies sold snacks, and that was and I saw Footloose like 500 times there, and that was where we went. But then on the other side of that, during that time, I was in a gifted artists program, and we would head and they'd take us into New York City, and so I got
Oh,
to see
fun.
some of the best art in the world, and explore that city. It is interesting how much we got to do on our own,
Yeah.
and the whole come be back at dark. Our kids have never really had that same kind of freedom, I don't think. I mean,
And
we've had certain
I want a
places where my
world.
kids have, but not on like the same level we had. Um,
I want a world where we can just be like, I don't know. There's a part of the Bible that talks about welcoming the stranger. And in a lot of other countries, you really can be the stranger that is welcomed and given a place to sleep and a meal and a tour around their locality to see all the best things just because you happen to stumble along upon them out in public. And that's the kind of community that I want more of. I don't want what's happening around the United States with our kind of rogue militia authorized by
I
a president who is a felon.
So the thing is going back to that two stories thing that was in my dream, but I think there's also two very different, like I would argue that there's probably a huge majority of our country that feels the same way you do, Sarah, that would like to have that type of world. But the way we get there, I forgot to start the timer, y'all. The way we get there is highly contested in terms of what that looks like. And one way
One thing
is
that I'm going to
go
stop.
for it.
One thing I
Yeah.
agree 100%. One thing that would not be contested is, and it is, according to, I want to say Isaac Asimov, data and experts. Can
I
we
agree.
please use the data and experts?
Yeah.
And like Sandra Day O'Connor said, let these states be laboratories of experiment in our legal system and how we get there, where we always and every justice of the Supreme Court should say this, where we always have that floor of rights given to us by this federal constitution. And that floor of rights needs to include privacy and
Well, it does include those
journalistic
things.
integrity, but
Sure.
in practice, not just in spirit.
Well, here's the thing I
And
would
in
say.
enforcement by the Supreme Court, which has been lacking a little, y'all get on your off your I don't know how you're tripping on your robes, y'all.
So there's two things I would say that brought up for me, Sarah. And one
Mhm.
is that just a reminder of that because I think people have forgotten this, and I got this reminder recently, and I really appreciated it, which is the Constitution and those Bill of Rights are written for us. They're for us to
We the
not for.
people.
They are not for the government. The government does. The Constitution is not the government is not protected by the Constitution. We are protected by the Constitution. And so when the government starts to take up, following the Constitution as if they're the might makes right, backwards. No, no, no. We're that's for us. The Constitution is our protection from
Powers
them.
flow from us, not the other
Correct.
way around.
The
Mhm.
second, the second,
So
and I
get in
think
the streets, y'all.
that can get conflated when you hear a bunch of people making speeches on a Congress floor about the Constitution. But it's like, come on. The other thing that brought up for me, which I'm going to just like totally forget, you were talking about our rights and oh, well, it'll come back.
It will.
Menopause.
It's okay, y'all. And you know,
What else were we talking about? Oh, the version of that. No, that's what I was gonna say. So you were talking about data and experts and all that stuff. And while I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you, I used to say something when I would train doctors on communication skills all the time, which is that people cannot hear data when they are in their fields. So you
Mm-hmm.
have, that's why there's a fight against empathy right now. Because truthfully, empathy is the thing that calms everybody down so that they can hear the data and act rationally. If we keep them all afraid and up in their fields, then they don't ever go there. And so the fight against empathy is really a fight against letting people's nervous systems calm down enough to make rational choices. And that is very neurodivergent. And I got to say, in my or what we've talked about in the past about our nervous systems, we are in a fight for our nervous systems right now so that we can make the choices that are right for us as a people. And so I don't know, find your
So,
pattern. You
yeah,
find the people in your world who can see the patterns because I see it so clearly, you know,
yeah,
and have to work on a daily to try to calm my nervous system down. Even when I know it's happening.
yeah. No, it's uh, as always that breathing, that recognizing that do I feel it in my body?
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel it in my chest, y'all. I feel it in my chest. It's a pressure.
Yeah. So if we go back to our original, when we were talking about in terms of
Dreams.
dreams, how do
Hmm.
you experience? Because I mean, I started dream journaling. And honestly, I'll tell you, ChatGPT has been the thing that's made my dream journaling so much easier because I can get up, roll over, and talk into it. And then it
Mm.
tracks patterns for me. So it will say, oh, like I had a period of dreaming a few months ago that there was a lot of the color orange really prominent. And so it can say, you've really been dreaming a lot about the color orange. Do you want to know what orange means? Like,
Hmm.
the other
What
thing
did orange mean?
I don't remember. Uh, the other thing that I could go back, but I've got a lot of stuff I'd have to go through. The other thing that I really appreciate is that often my brain will go to negative things. It will, like in my head, I'll be like, I don't have nightmares very much anymore. I'm one of those dreamers that if something starts to get scary or uncomfortable, I can literally say, no, thank you. I'm not gonna do this, and I just move on or wake up.
So
So
lucid dreaming, basically, a little bit.
yeah, like I guess, yeah. And but I will say that if I wake up going like, ooh, maybe that was a really bad, what is my brain doing? It's going into dark places. Often when chat sort of catalogs my dreams, it will come up with, because it pulls from all of the different dream journaling symbolism that I don't know about. So
Hmm.
and pulls it together and it will talk about like things like what does the yellow hat mean and
What
why
does the yellow
yellow.
hat mean? And why
Um,
yellow? Good. Answer these. They're pressing questions.
So, well, the yellow hat was a way for us to recognize each other.
Hmm.
And it's sort of like, yellow is sort of, as you can imagine, has vibes of sort of like joy and happiness and I mean yellow is very close to gold, so there's a sense of, finding the people who match your lightness and brightness and who have a connection to source and all of that stuff. So that's sort of and that's why it's on our that the hard hats are on our heads because it's also that we are the builders that in the dream, the symbolism of the dream of like you are starting to gather the builders of what comes next, right? Because
Hmm. Hmm.
if you're in the middle of a fall, things will fall. If you're in the middle of collapse, it doesn't go back up. It's got to
Yeah,
come all the
tower
way
card.
down.
Everybody's talking about the tower card, y'all.
And then after the collapse, you have to figure out how you're going to rebuild. And, and so I think there's a lot of people, I mean, even certain leaders in the world who are talking about what happens next, because I think it's clear that it's gonna, we're gonna have to make different choices moving forward at some point. And so I think that dream was a lot about how are you going to find and gather the builders, the people who are ready to jump into that next space. And when I say and you, I don't know if it means me personally, although I'm the one dreaming about it, but I just think it felt like a very
It's
sort
a
of
cohort.
collective.
Hmm.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
felt like a collective dream, not just a me dream. Whereas
Hmm.
the one with
With the
the
two
story
stories.
felt very the two stories must become one. Go now, get out there. That felt like a me dream in many ways. I mean, it could. I think it's true for a lot of people, and if it resonates with people, that's great. But I definitely
Hmm.
was felt like led to share that dream, but I don't. I also think it was a very like you've got to start doing the thing you do and stand up and tell the stories and tell the stories on the side of right and that one. And I have, I can go all into who I think that was and whatever. Some of that's private. Nobody else needs to know that. Um,
Hmm.
but it is, yeah, I think it's an interesting thing.
I certainly have had a number of very sharp dreams, to your point, and
Mhm.
then, you know, at least one came true. So yeah, came true. So, there's a lot of interesting stuff. We've had in season one, or maybe it was season two, our episode about neurodivergent, autistic, psychic information and that whole podcast about it. I am by no means one of the more gifted there, but definitely have had it peek through. And we know
Yeah.
that right now people are claiming or talking about the veil feeling very thin. I am
Hmm.
definitely waking up this week. I have woken up every single night for about 2 hours in the middle of the night, so much so that my watch is like, you are not sleeping well.
What time does that happen?
It's been kind of all over the place, but 1:50 to 3, 3 to 4, sometimes 2:50 to 4:50.
So that 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is one of those times that, I mean, if you
Yeah,
look at lots of different faith cultures, is universally known as like the most peaceful time. So often people will choose to wake at that time and meditate.
yeah,
I have a friend
getting a
who did
lot of
that for
that.
years. She's I think she's Buddhist. And for years, I mean, she probably still does it. I just haven't
I
talked to her
probably
too
should.
much
That's
about
probably
it.
what I need to be doing. Thank you for
She
suggesting that
gets yeah, she and now she
because it's
said
been
she
a
used to
lot.
set her alarm and then now she said that she doesn't have to anymore. She wakes up between the hours of 2 to 3 or 3 and 4. I can't remember. And she just gets up and she meditates on the thought of peace and then she goes back to bed. It's just like, but that's, and she said, and the reason why is that universally, granted there are time zones, but that universally that is a time period where the least amount of crimes happen, that because people, are asleep,
Are
it's
sleeping.
quiet. And so you have this ability to, when you meditate on something like peace and love, it's sort of like you've got this ability to energetically cut through much easier than at other times, which I find really interesting.
Mhm. I like it too. And on that note, I
Yeah.
think it has been kind of a minute and a
All
half that
right.
you guys have spent with us. Thank you.
Yeah, talking
And
about our
if you
dreams.
have stuff like this, I really want to hear about it. Actually, this is always makes me excited to hear about.
And I will say, because I've heard this too, that if you are thinking to yourself, gosh, I know I must dream, but I really wish I remembered my dreams and I just don't, that that people have said over and over and over and over again, and I employ it a bit differently. I just will say, I'd really love to remember my dream tonight. I'll just sort of say it before I go to bed to myself. But there are people who say if you write it down next to your bed, that there's something that happens in the kinesthetic of you writing down, I'd really love to remember my dreams, or please let me remember my dreams tonight. That there's something about the kinesthetic aspect of writing it down that goes to your brain and will help you actually remember your dreams. And I don't know how true that is for everybody, but it is something to try if you're interested in starting to remember and to catalog your dreams. And the other thing that I'll say I've learned about in this dream journaling, and that is often if I wake up with I wake up with lots of songs, all different kinds.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting. I have that is a thing. But what I've learned is that if it's acute and I remember it, that there's like a message or something there that my brain needs or, wants me to know. But if it is, if it's just like a vibe and like I was dreaming, but I can't really like I had one dream once, Sarah, I know we got to go, but I had one dream once where I literally, as I was waking up, I saw the dream fold in on itself and fly away like an origami bird. And I can't remember that dream, but I remember that ending moment. And so when that stuff happens, when I've done research on it, it says it's like your body's integrating information that you have, and you don't need to remember it. So don't worry about it. It's just your brain's doing some work, and it doesn't need you involved. So just some ending things about dreaming and dream journaling, but it's really fun.
That was a lovely image to take us out on. Thank you.
Yeah.
And please leave us your origami dreams in our comments.
We'll see you next time.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. This podcast is the creative work of This Is How My Brain Works. It is not authorized for use in training, development, or refinement of artificial intelligence or machine learning systems. Any attempt to copy, analyze, or repurpose this audio for AI training is explicitly prohibited.